Good evening. We are Group 24 and today we'll be presenting our take on the tunnel project. And our group is composed of Nicholas, Richard, Eric, and I, Anna. So first off, we want to go ahead and lay down our site layout. We went ahead and chose a mile alignment that is south of Corsicana and South 15th Street, and we made sure that it was free of any obstruction. For our trench, we went ahead and chose this kind of cross section that though it was the biggest area, we liked it for the fact that it had a 1-to-1 slope, so it would help a lot with the whole trench safety and having to avoid a trench box.
Our construction process is going to consist of 6 phases. The first one being stripping, which is to remove the vegetation, making digging easier. Then the excavation with a single excavator, which will be explained later on in the presentation. Then the bedding and pipe placement, which Richard will explain. He used 2 cranes for that. And the placement of flowable fill to seal the pipes in, and the backfill and the berm construction later on. The project schedule is we broke it up into 62-foot sections. This is so that we don't have the trench open for any lengthy period of time, because this is a violation of some OSHA codes and some city codes. So we planned it where we would do each phase of the project and then fill in that section of the trench and then start digging a new section, so there's never a large amount of trench open, which is a safety issue.
So as Nick described, one of our first tasks was stripping. As a general rule, we went ahead and for all our equipment and all operations, we did 8-hour work days, and also as far as labor, we paid $25 per hour for all equipment handlers. And also, as far as rental, we went ahead and rented every single equipment. So for stripping, I went ahead and chose the CAT D7E7S, which is a dozer with a straight blade. We went ahead and removed 6 inches of soil. Our production was almost 80 bank cubic yards per hour, and it was a completion time of 5 8-hour work days. As I mentioned, we rented, so it was almost $18,000 per month for an operational cost of $1.33 per loose cubic yard, and took it over to Nick.
The excavation, the assumptions that I made, basically because we have such a deep trench and that 1-to-1 slope made the max reach extremely long, 56 feet. This narrowed it down to only 2 excavators that Caterpillar provides. The total amount of soil to be excavated is 374,000 cubic yards, which is an extreme amount of soil. That affected my decisions as far as the bucket size. I assumed a 90-degree swing angle. The optimum height is 40% of the maximum digging depth for excavators. I also assumed a 25-second cycle time, which is on the high end for cycle times. This is due to the size of the excavators and the cost, as we mentioned before. The first excavator that I looked at was a CAT 390DL. This gave us a production of 511 bank cubic yards per hour. The excavation alone would take 91.5 8-hour working days. The rental cost is $28,000 a month, giving us an operational cost of 50 cents per loose cubic yard. And the total cost for excavating with this particular excavator is $252,000. The second excavator I looked at, this is the one I chose due to its higher production capacity at 557 bank cubic yards per hour, shortening the time to 84 8-hour work days. The cost is the same, bringing our operational cost down to 43 cents per loose cubic yard, and the total cost of excavating to $111,000.
Okay, so now for pipe safety, as for every construction project, safety is paramount on every construction project. So we want to make sure that everybody is safe. As for this type of project, we are highly concerned on the stability of the soil, but because we're using a 1-to-1 slope, we felt like we didn't need to use a trench box. But some of the measures that we are recommending is to have ladders readily available for all the workers that are in the trench, to have adequate access on both sides of the trench, and also to have a supervisor have proper accountability of all the workers that are working inside the trench during the installation. For the pipe installation and pipe embedment, we're using two 25-ton crawler cranes because of the terrain of the area. We want to make sure that the crane can move around in the site all the way throughout the 1 mile stretch. And we're going to be using two cranes simultaneously to lay down the pipes on both sides of the trench. The cost of the rental of this crane is going to run us about $68,400. So for the first step, we're going to lay down the sand at the bottom of the trench, and then we will be installing the pipes. And the sand is so that it can help with the stability and movement of the pipe. And from there, we're going to install the flowable fill into the trench, and this is going to help with the long-term stability of the pipe and more compressibility. For this type of material, we calculated the cost to be around $5.4 million. And finally, from the midsection up to the surface or to the ground surface of the trench, we're going to be using a compactor, a chip foot compactor, to be compacting the soil in layers, the clay soil in layers. And the rental cost for this equipment is going to run us around $6,300 per month.
One of our final steps in regards to the trench was going to do a berm construction. When I did the berm construction, I analyzed two types of equipment, both the excavator that Nick mentioned earlier and the dozer that we use for stripping. We decided to go ahead and use the excavator because of the higher production at a lower cost. So for the berm, it's going to be at an ultimate height of 5 feet, because that way it will reduce the amount of material that's going to need to be hauled away. So for this equipment and for the berm, it was a production of 544 bank cubic yards per hour and a completion of 15 8-hour days. The first cost, the operational cost, was 16 cents per loose cubic yard for a total cost of $14,534.
Some assumptions for the spoil removal. First is the dump site will be 1 mile away from the actual job site. It will be off-road, and the dump time will be 2 minutes. It will be, another assumption that I assumed was it will be air compacted and maintained, so that means that there will be no grade resistance, which will be 0, and the rodent resistance will be 4, which brings us to a total resistance of 4%. Also, another assumption would be we use the same excavator as for the loader. We chose a truck 775G for this kind of job. The spoil needed to be removed was 77,808 cubic yards. We use a heat capacity of 54.5 cubic yards and a loader bucket capacity of 8.5 loose cubic yards. The load time was 2.5 minutes, the haul time was 2.14 minutes, and the return time was 1.44 minutes, which brought a total truck cycle time of 8.08 minutes. The number of trucks we are using are 4 trucks, and the production came out to be 1,136.14 loose cubic yards per hour, and the cost was 29 cents per cubic yard. This brought the total time to be 255 days to complete the time, in, which is close to 9 months, and the total cost was $6.9 million. Any questions?